Guten Yardening. Today we're here in the onion patch to talk to you about tomatoes. In this video, we're going to talk to you about how we're growing even more tomatoes for free. From last year's tomato crop, we have volunteer tomato plants. But they're basically growing like weeds because they're not where we want them to be. And if we didn't take care of them, they wouldn't provide us with any benefit. You can already see this tomato plant is leaning off to the side and would grow across here in a vining pattern. To prevent that, what we're going to do is harvest some of these tomato plants and transplant them in a way that's beneficial to us and most beneficial to the plant. Here's how we do it. Now sometimes the volunteer tomato plants come up in a space where there's actually enough room for them to grow and we can support them and not move them to somewhere else. But in this case, there isn't really the space that we need. We have all of these onions growing in here, so we're going to take these out and again, transplant them. You can actually see the various stages that these tomato plants are in. So we have some very young ones, and then some that are in their later stages that'll have a much larger root structure already. And so we actually harvest these in different ways. For the smaller ones, because they're so resilient, we can just pull them right up out of the ground, and you can see the roots are here, and it didn't really damage the roots. But if I had damaged them a little bit, again, they're resilient, they'll make their way back. But because we have some that are a little bit bigger, we're going to take a spade, and I'm going to set this one just in some soil. Go to the side here. Just for now. And we'll be planting this much deeper than I'm doing that, but I'll show you that here in a second. I'm going to take a spade for this one because it's a little bit bigger. I'm going to go straight down, and we're going to try to pull this one out with, again, not damaging the roots too much. If we do a little bit of damage, I'm not really worried. We've got to take care though, because we have a lot of onions in here, and we don't want to try to harvest those too early. There we go. You can hear it pop right out of there. Okay. And there we go. I'm not going to mess with the soil around the roots right now. And this is the plant that we're going to show you how to transplant to make more free tomatoes. Well, we're out front by our little patio garden, and we'll give you a tour of that, don't worry, with some of the plants that we've already harvested from our onion patch. Now, these have been transplanted into slightly larger containers, but we've let them in here for about 2 weeks, just enough time for the roots to really develop, and we're going to be transplanting these into larger pots soon as well. There you go. The tomato plant that we just harvested has only been out of the ground for about 10 minutes, and already you can see it's starting to wilt. But as I said earlier, that's not a big problem as long as once you transplant it, you keep it nice and watered, and so that it doesn't dry out, you'll have no problems. In this case, when we plant tomato plants, it's different from almost every other vegetable that you plant. Typically, those plants need to be planted right at the line where it came out of the ground and the roots start. For tomato plants, you really want as much of the stem to come in contact with the soil as possible. So in order for that to happen, we're going to remove the lower leaves, and we're going to plant this as deeply as we can. Now that might be governed by the size of your pot. In this case, we're going to try for about 7 inches into the ground. And so we've dug a hole already, but I'm going to make sure that we've got it as deep as I can get it down in here. And we're going to add the soil right around it, and I'm actually going to mound it up. I'm going to mound it up a little bit with some of our soil mixture. Stem as deeply planted in the ground as possible. And I'm going to add even a little bit more. You are not going to be hurting this plant at all by planting it this deep. If we had a deeper pot, we could have even taken this leaf off and planted all the way up to here. Realistically, what we're doing is giving the biggest available space for root growth. And as a result of that root growth, you end up with a stronger plant and more produce. Even though this plant is wilting now, we're going to give it a good watering, and here in a day or two, you're going to see it will pop right up and begin its journey toward providing us with more free tomatoes. Now we've given this tomato a good watering and we're going to move it over to the shade. And this is something that you would typically not do in the heat of the day. But again, to stress the resilience of these plants, when we first harvested these, we kept some of them in about, I don't know, an inch maybe of soil. And this is one of the tomatoes that was left over, and it's growing. It's growing in this little bit of soil. This tomato plant is also proof of something else. If you don't have a deep pot, but you have something that's a little bit wider, you can plant these tomatoes on their side. And if I can show you just a little bit, you can see that the roots are actually going this way because it can't really go down. And the plant will always grow toward the sun. So the plant will grow up even if you lay it on its side. So again, if you don't have that depth, but you can still take off the bottom leaves, lay the tomato plant sideways, and cover with a little bit of soil, it will grow up still. And these transplants are going to quickly develop into much bigger plants. Only a few weeks ago, these tomato plants were the same size as our transplants, and now they're already developing fruit. We do have to do a little bit of maintenance, clipping off some of the lower leaves, and then we're going to mound some of the soil. Again, you don't have to stop just because they start growing. You can encourage some more of that root development and continue to strengthen your plant by continuing to mound as it grows. We've trimmed off a few more of the lower leaves again so we can expose the stem and mound up even further. Wherever we've covered up these stems, that root system is going to grow and expand and continue to develop and create a plant that's healthier and bears more fruit. As a pro tip, you'll often find a new plant growth coming in between the leaf and the stem. This is called a sucker. And you can actually harvest these suckers and plant them in soil, transplant them, just like we did with the little volunteer plants from our garden. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna plant it as deeply as we can, and we're gonna give it a nice watering. And we've created a clone tomato plant. In this case, you could plant it in soil like we did, keep it watered, and keep it in a nice, humid place in the shade. In our case, prior to our harvest being ready, we had some salad mix that we bought. And these containers, when you drill some holes in the top, work really well to keep that moisture in. So, this plant's almost too big already. We'll water. We can actually water around the outside as well. And we have a kind of miniature greenhouse effect. And we'll keep that in the shade, and you'll see the plant's roots start to develop. Alternatively, you can place a sucker into a container of water and it will develop roots, and you can then transplant it into a pot, or if you have room, into your garden. So there you have it. 2 simple ways to increase the number of tomato plants you have and to potentially greatly increase the number of tomatoes you can harvest. We hope you enjoyed the... Wait, did I promise you a tour? Let's take a look at our patio garden. This is our small patio garden. Now, I know not everyone has even the small bit of land that we do to plant a garden in. And so if you don't, one solution is in your driveway or wherever you have even a little bit of space, getting some of these potted plants, and you'll find that you'll still be able to create enough produce that you can enjoy the fruits and vegetables of your labor. In our small patio garden, we have a variety of plants. Some of them, like the sunflower and marigold, are there to help with pollination, pest control, and just generally to help with the beauty of the area. But most of these plants are there for us to consume. Here we have one of my favorite plants of all time. We started growing this 2 years ago. This is Keuka Melon. You can see it's a vining plant. It's crawling up the tomato cage. The Keuka Melon looks just like this, and the taste is somewhere between a cucumber and a little bit of, I guess, a watermelon, but it's got a sweetness and a sourness at the same time. It's like a burst of flavor. It's a great, refreshing snack. We have our tomatoes, which we were looking at earlier, a struggling summer squash that we're gonna have to spend some time on. This is a tiger melon. Now this tiger melon, there are actually two in here, and this pot is too small, so we're gonna have to separate these and transplant one of them so it has a little bit more room to grow. Basil, I know a lot of people love to plant their herbs in pots. A few pepper plants. These are sweet peppers. And this zucchini is struggling. It's been attacked by some insects. And as you'll see here in a second, we have another zucchini from the exact same time, planted at the same time, seeded at the same time, and it's doing much better. So even a short space away, you can see a difference in performance with some of these plants. Another variety of tomato, and this one already has some tomatoes coming in. This is a summer squash. Lots of fruit. Lots of fruit getting ready to come in, if I can get it to focus. And this was planted directly from seed. So this was directly sown into the ground. And our experience has been with summer squash that in pots anyway, directly sowing produces and outgrows transplants. This is the zucchini I was talking about. So this zucchini, again, was planted at the same time as this zucchini, and it's about 4 feet away, and it hasn't had the same experience. The bugs haven't gotten to it, and it's developing much better. This zucchini is another that was directly sown, and you can see we're going to be harvesting this one. And finally, we have some onions growing by some peppermint. And these onions are also bulbing up very nicely, and we can harvest some of the greens, which should help the onions bulb up even better. And there's one more thing. I should show you this beautiful plant. It's just now opening up in the last couple of days. Isn't that stunning? There's one more little plant that we have growing here that I didn't show you. And we're gonna do a video on this in the future. But you can't actually see it yet because we just planted it. And that plant is ginger. You can see the eye right there. We're gonna do a video to show you how to grow ginger. It's really cool. We really hope you enjoyed our video today and found it informative. If you have experiences growing tomatoes that differ from ours, leave us a comment and let us know what you've done to achieve great harvest success with your tomatoes. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and subscribe and share with your friends and family. And remember, when you're with us, you're good to grow.